So we can extend this idea of localizing to something called glocalizing, global localizing. These are commitments to reducing carbon emissions. So glocalization actually is defined in the Encyclopedia Britannica as linguistic merger of globalization and localization to describe processes that simultaneously exhibit both universalizing and particularizing tendencies in contemporary social, political, and economic systems. Okay, that sounds complicated, but basically Conference of Parties is a good example of doing that. It is worrying about contemporary social, political, and economic systems within the context of globalization of climate action within the global economy and localization of actions, as we will see in terms of the activities under Global Covenant of Governors, Habitat 3, Union of Concerned Scientists, and religious organizations. Okay, so this is the announcement from the Paris City Hall declaration. We understand this is, I think, from Global Covenant of Governors. We the undersigned mayors, governors, and premiers and other local government leaders commit collectively to advance and exceed the expected goals of the 2015 Paris Agreement to be reached at COP21, produce and implement participatory resilience strategies and action plans, deliver up to 3.7 gigatons of urban greenhouse gas emission reductions annually by 2030, very specific commitments, support ambitious long-term climate goals such as transition to 100% renewable energy in our communities. So that's the localization that makes such specific commitments, and tracking them and keeping metrics makes it very easier, and 80% greenhouse gas emission reduction by 2050. Amazing commitment, right? Engage in partnerships among ourselves and with global organizations, so that's the local global interaction in the bioregional context, national governments, private sector, and civil society to enhance cooperation and capacity building programs, scale up climate change solutions, develop metrics, very easy at local scales, promote, well, not very easy, but at least once developed, easy to track and monitor. Promote innovative finance mechanisms and investments in low emission projects across the world. So local solutions across the world can look for transferable solutions. The other big thing in the bioregional transitions, especially looking at drivers, is to remember that there is 55% of the population lives in urban environments and 45% in rural environment, and often they tend to drift in exploiting local resources like water or food and so on. And solutions have to kind of consider the strong link between them in this bioregional context. Okay, so this is from this paper which provides a framework on the development in urban areas, development in rural areas, and how they are both related to national development and how they have a feedback between them in terms of employment, market, technology, and information flowing towards the rural areas. So a lot of the farmers in India, for example, after the rainy season tend to migrate to urban and peri-urban areas for employment. Not always a good thing, of course, but worrying about the rural-urban connection makes it easier to reduce the negative impacts of that seasonal migration back and forth. Ecosystem services flowing from development in rural areas to urban areas include provisioning, regulating, cultural, and supporting. And the link between these services flowing back and forth is to look for enhancing and protecting the ecosystem, infrastructures, information, and technology. Okay, so we haven't explicitly talked much about this sustainable development goals under the UN, which originally was the Millennium Goals in the 20th century. And there are 15 of them which focus on a large range of issues like poverty, water, health, employment, equities, women's rights, gender equality, and so on. So 11 specifically focuses on sustainable cities and communities. So let me stop this. So we need to understand the context of SDG within that as well, because there are these various activities under different organizations that all aim towards the same thing. So coordination is important. So SDG 11 talks about making cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. That's obviously consistent with localization that we are talking about. So this is looking specifically at before COVID-19 and COVID-19 implications. So share of urban populations living in slums before COVID-19 had risen to 24% in 2018. And COVID-19 had implications on it in the sense that over 90% of the COVID-19 cases were in urban areas like Mumbai, where I'm sitting right now, was a hotspot in India for a while. Only half of the world's urban population has convenient access to public transportation. Air pollution caused by causes 4.2 million premature deaths. That was in 2016. So 47% of the population live within 400 meters and walking distance to open public spaces. Okay, so these are the issues that have to be worried about. And we will look in this context, what are the drivers of bioregional transitions that happen. Okay, this is the image we had seen before. This is the city lights at night composite figure by NASA. Obviously it's not night at the same time at all these places, so they are concatenated together. In the previous time we looked at it, we said where there are no lights doesn't mean there are no people. It's just that their livelihoods and their access to wealth and electricity and energy are very different. Okay, so but this gives you a sense of clusters, localizations, bioregions as well, right? You can see all the big cities, Boston, New York, Miami, whatever, Chicago, and so on and so forth, Delhi up here, etc., right? So this is what we have to work with, urban-rural connections within the localization context and the drivers of bioregional transitions within the urban-rural context as well. And then superposed on that are climate change issues like extreme events, climate migrations, agricultural yield losses, sea level rise, etc.